What was your life like in Lemuria? Rudolf Steiner's account of Lemuria begins with a startling claim. You were there, but you were not yet human in the way you understand the word. Your body was soft and changeable, and your consciousness was connected to the spiritual world. Your mind spoke directly to creation. Then the moon began to separate from Earth, and everything changed. Human bodies grew denser. Your consciousness withdrew from the spiritual world, and the Lemurian continent moved towards destruction. When did your soul enter into this drama? Perhaps something in Steiner's account will feel strangely familiar because somewhere within these transformations, your earthly journey began. Before the moon withdrew, Lemuria was not a world upon which you could have stood. Heat, vapor, fire mist, and thick living matter surged where oceans and continents would later appear. Mountains still lay dissolved within the churning substances of earth. Islands rose, changed shape, and disappeared again. The planet was becoming a world, but it was not yet ready for everyone. Some human souls entered into these unstable conditions. Others remained behind. Even higher spiritual beings held themselves apart from the violence of the young earth, waiting within the planetary spheres of Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Mercury until earthly existence could receive them. Had you entered during the earliest wave, you would have not awakened in anything resembling a human body. You might have experienced yourself as a warm, luminous being of fire mist, drifting within an atmosphere that was scarcely separated from the churning waters of earth. There was no firm boundary between your body and the world around you, or between you and the other souls with whom you shared existence. You did not yet think, I am. Your consciousness flowed within a greater group soul and remained open to the spiritual world. As the earth grew denser, you descended more deeply into physical form. Your etheric and astral nature entered a soft serpent-like body that swam through the warm, heavy substance of water earth. You did not breathe or move as you do now. You drifted, flexed, and glided through a world that was neither fully liquid nor solid. From the crown of your head, a luminous current rose above the soupy waters. It linked you to the higher spiritual beings guiding your development. You were immersed in earthly matter, yet part of you remained open to the heavens. Then the moon drew closer to its separation from the earth, and your body changed again. You entered a vaguely human form, bent forward and supported on four limbs, moving across a surface that was only beginning to harden beneath you. You could not yet stand upright. You could not yet experience yourself as an independent human ego. But under the influence of the sun beings, your head slowly began to rise above the surrounding waters. With that upward movement came the first faint impulse of a new awareness. Not yet the full declaration, I am, but the beginning of a conscious self that could one day speak those words. If you had a mirror to see yourself in that world, you would have scarcely have recognized the being looking back at you. Your body was soft, serpent-like, and unfinished, only beginning to rise from its earlier folded posture. Around this denser form shimmered the luminous activity of your etheric and astral nature. Your physical senses were undeveloped, but you were still connected to the cosmos. You felt the great tones streaming through the earth, not merely as sound, but as a formative music shaping living bodies from the watery substances around you. The world itself seemed to vibrate, and your developing form responded to its harmonies. Your body died and came back into more finished, denser forms. Your experiences carried forward, returning to Earth again and again as your human form and your human soul. It continued its long journey towards an angelic future. At this stage, your body was neither distinctly male nor female. It still carried both capacities within a single human form. In Steiner's account, the force is later divided between masculine and feminine imaginative clairvoyant perception. You did not reproduce through sexual reproduction. New life arose from forces within that unified body, guided by higher spiritual beings. Later, as Lemuria evolved, the human form divided into male and female bodies, and sexual reproduction began. You lived almost entirely in the present. Memory was faint, and the separate sense of I had barely begun to form. Higher beings were not distant objects of faith. Their presence flowed directly into your consciousness. But human evolution had reached a crisis. If the earth and moon remained united, your body would have continued to harden until most human souls could no longer enter. Steiner describes this condition as a kind of mummification. The physical form would survive, but it could no longer support humanity's spiritual development. Another danger was growing within the human astral stream. Powerful lower impulses and deviant spiritual influences were beginning to take hold. Then the higher spiritual beings connected with Saturn intervened. They drew the moon away from the earth, carrying with it the densest substances and destructive forces. The earth softened, and human development could continue. Souls that had been waiting beyond the earth could begin to return. The moon's departure did more than save the human body. It changed your consciousness and the course of human destiny. At what stage do you imagine your soul entered this story? During the early fire mist existence, or after the moon separated and human souls returned? Tell me in the comments. Not every human being continued along the path. Some forms became so fixed by their particular passions that they hardened and fell behind. Steiner describes lion-like forms and other animal branches as offshoots from this earlier stage of development. But your soul did not remain behind. It continued within the human stream, and that's why you're here now listening to this podcast. Then the Lemurian story took a darker turn. Luciferic beings entered the human astral stream. In Steiner's account, their influence was necessary, for without it, humanity could not have developed freedom or independence from their direct higher guidance. Yet the same influence also awakened an imbalance. Desire intensified, selfishness appeared, the forces of will could be turned towards destructive ends. Steiner links this misuse of fire forces to the catastrophes that brought Lemuria to its end. The land was torn by volcanic eruptions, consumed by fire, and in many regions overwhelmed by the waters. Yet Lemuria was not the end. Survivors carried the human streams into lands that would one day become Atlantis. Were you among them, fleeing the fires into a new world, or did your Lemurian life end in the catastrophe and your eternal soul returned later beneath the skies of Atlantis? Steiner believed that nothing from this journey was truly lost. Its record remains within the Akasha, and perhaps its distant imprint still moves within you.